Hello students, this is Jayapai speaking. In this class, we are studying something about determination of chemical oxygen demand, that is COD of wastewater. So title is determination of chemical oxygen demand, that is abbreviated as COD of wastewater. Now what is this chemical oxygen demand? This test is largely being employed for measuring the pollution strength of industrial waste water. So this test is extensively being used in order to measure the pollution strength of industrial waste water. So what is the extent of pollution in the water, or to what extent the water is polluted? To know that we can perform this test. Now COD, it is a measure to know the quality of water. It is a measure of quality of water. So COD is a measure of quality of water. Higher the COD, higher the pollution strength of water. So if the COD value for a given sample of water is high, it means that that water is highly polluted. So higher the COD, higher the pollution strength. Now let us go to define the chemical oxygen demand. Let us see how we can define it. Now chemical oxygen demand, it is defined as the amount of oxygen required for the complete oxidation of total organic load, that includes both biodegradable and non-biodegradable, present in 1 liter of water using a strong oxidizing agent such as acidified potassium dichromate, that is K2Cr2O7. I repeat, COD is nothing but the amount of oxygen required for complete oxidation of total organic load, that means waste. Total organic load which includes both biodegradable and non-biodegradable. That waste present in 1 liter of water. In 1 liter of water, how much waste is there and how much oxygen is required to oxidize that waste is to be determined, that is using strong oxidizing agent such as acidified potassium dichromate. This is the chemical being used in the determination of COD. Therefore the name, that is chemical. Chemical means with the help of a chemical we are producing oxygen. With the help of a chemical we are producing oxygen, and that oxygen is utilized for the oxidation of the waste present in the 1 liter water. Now how much what is the demand for oxygen by the waste? How much what is the demand for oxygen by the waste? That is, we have to determine. If waste demands more oxygen, that means more waste, if the waste demands more oxygen, that means pollution strength is more. So definition is very important in order to understand the entire experiment. So COD is defined as the amount of oxygen required for the complete oxidation of the total impurities or the total organic load, total waste, which may include both biodegradable and non-biodegradable, present in 1 liter of water sample using a strong oxidizing agent, that is a chemical, acidified potassium dichromate. So COD is expressed in milligrams per liter. COD is expressed in milligrams per liter. Just summarizing, this test is extensively being used in order to measure the pollution level in water. COD is a measure of quality of water if the COD value is high, it means the pollution strength or extent of pollution is high in water. And to determine chemical oxygen demand, we need to have a chemical, that is oxidizing agent, that is acidified potassium dichromate. This chemical is being used to produce the oxygen. That oxygen will be utilized for the oxidation of the waste. So COD, chemical oxygen demand, it is the waste demanding oxygen to get oxidized, and that oxygen is produced by the chemical acidified potassium dichromate. Moving on. In order to understand this principle of this experiment, which involves a large number of chemicals, let us first go to know what is the procedure of this experiment. Having understood how to do the procedure, then we will get familiarized with all the chemicals used in the experiment. Once we are familiar with the chemicals, then it becomes easy to understand why those chemicals are to be added. So I would like to explain the procedure first. Later we will go to the principal part. Now in this experiment, first to determine COD, we have to prepare standard solution of Morse salt. So we have to prepare standard solution of Morse salt. Morse salt is also known as chemically FAS. Chemically, Morse salt is nothing but FAS. FAS is ferrous ammonium sulfate. So FAS is ferrous ammonium sulfate. The formula being FeSO4. It is a double salt. It contains ferrous sulfate and ammonium sulfate, that is NH4 twice SO4 6H2O. Since it is a combination of two simple salts, that is ferrous sulfate and ammonium sulfate, it is known as double salt. Now first we have to take a Morse salt solution or a ferrous ammonium sulfate we have to take, and these crystals are to be weighed accurately. You have to weigh given Morse salt crystals accurately. That Morse salt will be given in the weighing bottle. You have to weigh it using electronic balance and transfer to a clean 250 ml standard flask. So we have to transfer it to 250 ml standard flask. Add 2 test tubes of dilute sulfuric acid. So we have to add 2 test tubes of dilute sulfuric acid and dissolve the crystals. This is very important. So Morse salt crystals are not dissolved directly in water. They are first dissolved in sulfuric acid. For that you have to add 2 test tubes of sulfuric acid. After the complete dissolution of the salt, we have to dilute that solution with the ion exchange water. You have to dilute the solution with ion exchange water or this distilled water up to the mark in the flask and to be shaken well for uniform concentration. Once the solution is prepared, we have to calculate the normality of the solution, that is the strength of the solution, and that solution is to be taken in the burette. So how to prepare a Morse salt solution? First we have to weigh accurately the given Morse salt crystals, and they are to be transferred to a clean 250 ml standard flask or volumetric flask through the funnel. And once all the crystals are transferred to the flask, that is standard flask, add 2 test tubes of dilute sulfuric acid. Morse salt, please note, Morse salt is not directly dissolved in water. It is to be dissolved first in sulfuric acid. Once the dissolution process is complete, you have to add more water, dilute the water with the distilled water or ion exchange water up to the mark, and shake the solution well for uniform concentration. Now calculate the normality of the solution, and that solution is to be taken in the burette. Now one point to be understood, why FAS is not directly dissolved in water. It is dissolved in a dilute sulfuric acid. Now let us see the reason for that. FAS is dissolved in a dilute sulfuric acid, not directly in water. First, because water, if it is added to FAS directly, if you add water directly to FAS, then ferrous sulfate present in FAS. You know, in FAS you have ferrous sulfate. Ferrous sulfate present in FAS directly undergoes hydrolysis to give ferrous hydroxide. So, if you add water directly to ferrous ammonium sulfate, the ferrous sulfate undergoes hydrolysis to give ferrous hydroxide. Ferrous hydroxide is a turbid solution which cannot be used as a titrant, which cannot be taken in a burette because that turbid solution cannot be used as a titrant. In order to prevent the formation of ferrous hydroxide, or in order to prevent the hydrolysis reaction, first FAS is dissolved in dilute sulfuric acid. Later you will add water and it is made up to the mark. Acid medium prevents the hydrolysis of ferrous sulfate to ferrous hydroxide. Now moving on. Titration. Now how to determine chemical oxygen demand? It involves actually two titrations. One is back titration, another one blank titration. Let us see back titration first. Now first you have to pipette out 25 ml of the given wastewater sample into a clean 250 ml conical flask. So wastewater sample will be provided to you. This wastewater, it can be collected either from the residential areas or from any business establishments or it from any industries. Okay. So if you are collecting wastewater from industries, it will be rich in chloride ions. But other than that, if you collect any wastewater from residential areas or business establishments and all, then chloride ion concentration is very less in that. So after pipetting out 25 ml of the given wastewater sample, you have to add 1 gram of mercuric sulfate. So mercuric sulfate HgSO4, it is added 1 gram. Followed by 2 test tubes of silver sulfate and sulfuric acid solution. So 1 gram of mercuric sulfate to be added and 2 test tubes of silver sulfate and sulfuric acid solution to be added. While doing the experiment in the lab, this 1 gram of mercuric sulfate is not advised to add. It is not added while doing the experiment in the lab. That is because we are providing the wastewater to you, a sample wastewater which is absolutely free from chloride ions. If the wastewater doesn't contain any chloride ions, then there is no necessity of adding mercuric sulfate. More about this we will see in the principal part. Why we are avoiding mercuric sulfate? You know that mercury is a heavy metal. It is toxic. Therefore, we are while doing the titration, minimum 3 trials we have to add. For each trial, we have to add 1 gram of mercuric sulfate, and after the trial, we have to discard that solution. We have to throw it in the sink. And each student, doing 3 trials, then in the entire batch, when many students are doing the experiment, 3 trials, then amount of mercury going into the sink or drainage, it will be enormous. And mercury leads to environmental pollutions and so many health hazards are reported with this toxic metal. Therefore, we are taking some extra care. Hence, we are providing you wastewater in the laboratory which is free from chloride ions. And then you have to add 2 test tubes of silver sulfate and sulfuric acid solution. Why these solutions are added, everything we will study in detail in the principal part. After adding that, you are pipetting out 10 ml of potassium dichromate solution into the flask. So again you have to pipette out 10 ml. First you have pipetted out 25 ml of the wastewater, and then here you are adding 10 ml of potassium dichromate, that is by using a pipette. Now fit the flask with reflux condenser and reflux the mixture for about half an hour. So flask is to be fitted with reflux condenser. Reflux condenser is a setup that is actually used to heat the reaction mixture without the volume getting reduced. So heating the reaction mixture without the volume of the solution getting reduced. Now how we can do that? The mixture is to be heated for half an hour. when any solution is heated for half an hour, we can't expect original volume to be present at the end of the half an hour. But if you use reflux condenser, there will not be any reduction in the volume. What is this reflux condenser? See, this is your conical flask in which you have taken wastewater. You have added 1 gram of mercuric sulfate. You have added 2 test tubes of silver sulfate and sulfuric acid mixture, and then you are pipetted out 10 ml of potassium dichromate solution. Now you are advised to fit the conical flask with the reflux condenser. This is a reflux condenser, and this is one more picture of reflux condenser. Here solution is taken, and upon heating, this solution is kept in a water bath. When the solution gets heated up, the vapors come out. These vapors are not they can't go out anywhere. These vapors are made to move through the inner tube. This is the inner tube. Here it is having some curvy shape. Through this the vapors go out. The vapors go up. Okay, and as the vapors go up, here temperature decreases, and through these pipes here water is circulated. So water is circulated through these pipes, and then these vapors get condensed. When vapors get condensed, these vapors will fall back into the conical flask. At the same time, the reaction mixture gets heated up. You can heat the mixture for 1 hour, 1.5 hours. You can reflux it without any reduction in the volume. So this is a simple picture of that is reflux condenser. Reflux condenser is a setup where using that we can heat the reaction mixture without any reduction in the volume of the reaction mixture. And how it is exactly being done is you are heating it. As you heat, the vapors will move in the through this tube. These vapors rise up like this, and when the vapors reach here, here temperature decreases, and anyhow through these side tubes water is let inside. So when water is circulated like this, then what happens is this tube gets cooled, and these vapors also get condensed, and all the vapors when get condensed, they fall back into the conical flask. So volume remains the same, and at the same time the mixture gets heated up. Now after heating the reaction, why it is to be heated for half an hour and all? Because you have their waste materials. Waste should get oxidized, that is in the presence of potassium dichromate. Potassium dichromate is a good oxidizing agent. It will oxidize all the waste present, but still some heavy load of waste is there which contains oil, grease, etc., complex molecules and all. Then potassium dichromate alone cannot break down all the complex molecules. That is why it needs to be heated. So upon heating, what happens? This oxidation reaction gets enhanced. Next, after that you cool the flask. The flask is to be cooled, and then add 2 to 3 drops of ferroin indicator. So after cooling the flask, the ferroin indicator is added. So this ferroin indicator is red in color, and titrate the standard more salt and titrate with the standard more salt solution until the color changes from bluish green to reddish brown. So after cooling that, you will be adding 2 to 3 drops of ferroin indicator, and titrate that solution with the standard more salt solution or FAS solution taken in the burette until the color changes from bluish green to reddish brown. To repeat the titration for agreeing values. I repeat. First what you have to do, you are given wastewater sample, and wastewater we have to collect either from industrial waste, industries, or we have to collect it from residential areas or any business establishments and all, and 25 ml of the wastewater to be transferred into a clean conical flask. To that, as per the procedure, we have to add 1 gram of mercuric sulfate, that is HgSO4. But in the regular lab, we don't advise the students to add 1 gram of mercuric sulfate because mercury is a heavy metal, it is highly toxic. That's why we suggest students not to use mercuric sulfate. Moreover, mercuric sulfate is added in order to remove the chloride ions present in the solution. But we are providing that water to the solution, we are providing that water to students which is absolutely free from chloride ions. Therefore, there is no necessity of adding mercuric sulfate. But while reading the procedure and while writing the procedure, students are instructed to read the procedure as it is. Okay, and then you have to add 2 test tubes of silver sulfate and sulfuric acid mixture. Let us discuss what is the role of each chemical while going through the principle. After that, we have to add pipette out 10 ml of potassium dichromate solution into the flask. So exactly 10 ml potassium dichromate is to be pipetted out. Then the flask is to be fitted with the reflux condenser, and solution is to be refluxed for about half an hour. After getting the mixture refluxed for half an hour, the flask is to be cooled. It is to be brought to the room temperature. Then add 2 to 3 drops of ferroin indicator. Then it is to be titrated with the standard Morse salt solution till the color changes from bluish green to reddish brown. One more point, in the regular class you are not refluxing the mixture for about half an hour. That is because we are giving you that waste water which doesn't contain heavy waste. This refluxing is required only when the water contains heavy load of the organic waste which cannot be easily removed or which cannot be easily oxidized by potassium dichromate alone. But we are giving you that water, simple wastewater sample where waste can be easily oxidized by the addition of a potassium dichromate itself. Okay, then after doing the titration for agreeing values, that is, you have a tabular column here. Next, see, this is the tabular column. In the tabular column, you know, as in the first 2 experiments I explained to you, initial burette reading, final burette reading, and volume of Morse salt solution used. There will be 3 columns like this. Initial burette reading, if you set it to say 20.0. So I told no, in the first 2 experiment it need not be always 0.0. It can be 0.0 also if you have got sufficiently good height, means no restriction for you as such to fix the value to 0. Otherwise if you are of average height, means then it is always suggested to adjust the value to 20 as the initial burette reading. And then you do the titration. When the color changes from bluish green to reddish brown, you stop the titration, and suppose the final burette reading at the end point is 30.2, and you report the first value, that is volume of FAS consumed, as 10.8. The first value to be shown, and it is to be attested. That is important after each trial. Now next trial, while going, you can take this one as the initial burette reading, that is 30.2, and similarly you do one more trial, that is same procedure is to be repeated, and next time if the final burette reading is 40.6, then it is 10.4. This value should also be shown to the teacher, and it is to be attested. And then 40.6 means you cannot take here that one as the initial reading because the volume consumed is 10. If it is 40.6, if you are taking, means if the volume is 10, that becomes 50.6. 50.6 means in the burette you cannot read that one, because you are all the burettes provided in the lab of a maximum capacity 50 ml. Therefore, again you have to fill the burette and adjust the reading to 20.0, and next you repeat the same procedure, and if you get 30 here, then the difference is 10. So you have got 3 different values. Whatever it is, whatever value you get while doing the experiment, you have to report the values as such. You are not supposed to change any value, you are not supposed to adjust any value, not supposed to manipulate any values. So with all the sincerity you have to do the experiment. And in the tabular column you are not supposed to scribble the readings, not supposed to overwrite anywhere. And after doing, showing all the 3 values, teacher will give you the correct value. The correct value, it is actually given or it is calculated. This value is calculated by the teacher. The teacher will calculate this value based on the weight of FAS the student is reporting. Each student is given some weight of FAS. The student will weigh the FAS, how much it is given, and the student has to report to the teacher that the weight of FAS is this much. Based on that weight of FAS, the teacher will calculate how much volume of EDTA should get consumed in the case of each student. And these values are not common for all the students. It varies and it depends on the weight of EDTA the student weighed. Okay, and then the volume of more salt solution required for the unreacted potassium dichromate, whatever among the three values, you have to take one of the values. There is no restriction as such as to which value you have to take. Any one of the values you can take. Suppose the teacher says that your reading is it is 10 ml is the correct value. If the teacher says, then among the three values, teacher will take the first value, this one. This is full mark because there is no error. 10 correct value, student also has got one value 10. Then the teacher will take, this is another reading, teacher will take this one because it is close to CV. It is 10.2 and error is only 0.2. So I told you in my first two, while explaining the first two experiment, only 0.2 ml error is allowed. If the reading is within plus or minus 0.2, then the student will get full marks. Then the teacher will ignore this trial. If these two, if you had not got, suppose if you have not got 10.2 and even this value is 10.4, in that case there will be 0.4 error. 0.4 error means you will be losing 4 marks. So how much you are losing marks, that was discussed in the total hardness experiment, and that scheme of evaluation also I have provided in the video. So please watch that video and try to understand what is the for how much error you are losing how much mark. Okay, so this is how you will do the experiment and you will be reporting the value like this. Now somewhere I told you that you are weighing that more salt solution. It is simple. In the first two cases also I discussed that hardness experiment and calcium oxide. You have to take the weighing bottle and more salt together. You have to weigh that weighing bottle plus more salt. Some reading you will record it. That is using the electronic balance. Then weight of weighing bottle alone. After weighing this, more salt you have to transfer it to a clean 250 ml standard flask. And this weighing bottle empty you have to weigh, that is W2 gram. Then weight of more salt dissolved per 250 ml, you have to subtract W2 from W1. You will get W. W means amount of more salt transferred to 250 ml. And equivalent mass of more salt is 392. Then you will calculate the normality of more salt solution. W is to be multiplied by 4 because W into 4 is nothing but weight per liter. Normality or molarity, whatever it is you are calculating, it is weight per liter divided by something. So weight per liter divided by equivalent weight means it is normality. Weight per liter divided by molecular weight of the substance means then it is molarity. In the first two cases you calculated a molarity, that is EDTA solution. That is you have divided by molecular mass of EDTA, but here it is a normality you are calculating, that is equivalent weight of more salt is given. So after calculating this, you have you are doing the experiment, you are filling in all the tabular columns. Then moving going back again, after doing this back titration and reporting all the values, there is one more titration you have to do, that is blank titration as per the procedure. Blank titration means you have to repeat the above procedure by taking 25 ml of the distilled water. First we have taken 25 ml of waste water, that is in the case of back titration. This is back titration. This is waste water, you have taken 25 ml. Now I am explaining to you, that is blank titration. Blank titration means instead of 25 ml of waste water you are taking distilled water. So it is distilled water provided to you. And in the place of sample water, you are taking same procedure, you are repeating whatever has been explained. That means to the 25 ml of distilled water, you are adding all those reagents which was explained in the case of back titration, and you are doing the titration with the ferrous ammonium sulfate solution until the color changes from that is bluish green to reddish brown. Okay, so this is how you do the back titration and blank titration. As per the procedure, if you have to do the titration, means totally 6 titer values are to be reported, but in the examination you will not get that much time to do 6 trials. For back titration 3 trials, blank titration 3 trials. So what we have received from the university saying that students will perform only back titration, that is with the wastewater sample, only one tabular column with the 3 trials. Blank titration students are not supposed to do. The teacher has to perform that blank titration and the value to be given to the student directly in order to save time, because in the examination students will be doing 3 hours exam, one experiment from part A and one experiment from part B, and therefore it becomes difficult for the students to do 6 trials, and hence that is blank titer value will be directly provided to you. That is, in this case, volume of more salt solution, that is another value, that is 18.7 ml, that is for blank titration when you take 25 ml of distilled water. And out of the 3 trials what you have done, one of the value you are taking that is for your back titration. So back titration value you are taking, blank titration value will be provided. It need not be always 18.7. I have given you some value here. In the examination that day this value will be given. It may be 18.7, it may be 19, it may be 15, whatever it is. That will be given on the day of the examination or when you are performing the experiments in the regular lab. So this is about this. Now V1 and V2 you will get 2 values. Using this value you have to do the calculation. Then you have to calculate, that is V2 minus V1 you have to do. V2 minus V1 some volume you will get, and then you will calculate the normality of the water sample. This normality of the water sample you have taken it in the conical flask. FAS you have taken it in the burette. Now V2 minus V1 FAS volume, because V2 is the FAS volume, you have titrated with the FAS. V1 is also FAS volume. Difference you will write, then multiply it by normality of FAS that you have calculated. The normality of FAS you will get here how much, and that value you substitute here, then you get normality of the water sample. Then you are doing COD, that is chemical oxygen demand, that is actually to be expressed in milligrams per liter. First we are calculating in a gram per liter. Gram per liter calculation to be done, we have the formula, that is normality of water multiplied by equivalent mass of oxygen. Normality of water sample you will get here, that value you have to substitute, then you have to multiply equivalent by equivalent mass of oxygen, that is nothing but 8. So you will get chemical oxygen demand, this is this much gram per liter. So COD is nothing but the amount of oxygen required to oxidize the waste, total waste. So this much gram of oxygen is required for 1 liter of water, but later you have to express that in milligrams. Therefore multiply that value by 1000 and express it in milligrams per liter. So this is about the experimental procedure and calculations. And now moving on to know the theory behind the experiment. So theory is little bit pure chemistry involved in a theory. That is why your attention is very much needed in order to understand the theory. It is not as simple as the first, simple as the theory of the first 2 experiments. Now, after having looked into the procedure of the experiment, now we are familiar with all the chemicals used in the experiment. What we have to do in the principal part C, you have taken the water sample, that is the wastewater sample. It is refluxed with a known mass of it is a known excess of potassium dichromate solution. Means how much dichromate solution you have added? 10 ml of potassium dichromate you have added. That is known volume of potassium dichromate solution. It is bit excess only we are adding, but whatever it is excess, we should be knowing how much ml of potassium dichromate is added. Potassium dichromate is an oxidizing agent. So it is added in order to oxidize all the impurities present in water, or in order to oxidize the total waste, both biodegradable and non-biodegradable, present in the water sample. And this oxidation process gets greatly enhanced in the presence of acid medium. Therefore dichromate is taken in the acid medium, that is sulfuric acid. So acidified potassium dichromate is the chemical used in order to oxidize the waste, and hence the name chemical oxygen demand. And this oxidation process is found to take acceleration in the presence of silver sulfate as a catalyst. Here silver sulfate is used as a catalyst, that is Ag2SO4. So its role is catalyst. Catalyst is the one which enhances the rate of the reaction. Dichromate in the acid medium itself is a powerful oxidizing agent, but silver sulfate we are adding still to increase the rate of the reaction if the quantity of the waste is very large and very complex kind of waste is present. And then we are also doing the titration in the presence of mercuric sulfate, that is for a specific reason. So these are the chemicals now we are quite familiar with. The potassium dichromate is an oxidizing agent that is added to oxidize the waste. Silver sulfate is a catalyst that is found to accelerate the oxidation reaction. Mercuric sulfate is added for a specific purpose. Let us see what it is. Now, potassium dichromate in the acid medium oxidizes the entire oxidizable organic load. Oxidizable organic load, that is both biodegradable and non-biodegradable, present in the water sample, and all the waste gets converted into carbon dioxide and water. So our main purpose is to convert the waste present in the water sample into carbon dioxide and water. So that is decomposition of the waste. Okay. And how exactly the waste gets oxidized, and from where oxygen is received for the oxidation purpose. Now potassium dichromate is an oxidizing agent, means it has to produce oxygen. So potassium dichromate produces nascent oxygen, that is in the presence of sulfuric acid. So acidified potassium dichromate is produces nascent oxygen. This is in situ, means just born. So in the medium, when you are adding sulfuric acid and potassium dichromate, this nascent oxygen is produced, and this nascent oxygen will be attacking all the waste, that is organic load, and entire waste is getting converted into carbon dioxide and water. So oxygen is provided by the oxidizing agent, that is potassium dichromate, and that oxygen is oxidizing these organic impurities or organic load into carbon dioxide and water. Moving on. Now silver sulfate acts as a catalyst. It catalyzes the oxidation of straight chain organic compounds. If the waste contains organic compounds, straight chain without any branching, straight chain organic compounds are present as waste, then for their oxidation, oxidation of straight chain organic compounds takes place slowly, but in the presence of silver sulfate their oxidation gets enhanced. Now mercuric sulfate, that is HgSO4, what for this is added? That is added to avoid the interference of chloride ions. So I told, no, if you are taking waste from industries, means wastewater, then obviously it will be rich in chloride ions. And if chloride ions are there in large number in wastewater, then we will get high COD value than the actual COD for the water. We will get high COD value, thereby giving a erroneous result. How it is? That is because these chloride ions are more in number, means that will get oxidized to chlorine gas in the presence of the oxidizing agent. We have acidified potassium dichromate, that is a powerful oxidizing agent, and that is added to oxidize the organic load. But if chloride ions are there, means in large number, even chloride ions get oxidized to chlorine gas in the presence of potassium dichromate, and hence high COD value is obtained, and that leads to erroneous results. Therefore, we have to remove this chloride ions by adding what? Mercuric sulfate. If you add chloride ions, then if you add mercuric sulfate, then chloride ions react with mercuric sulfate and mercury chloride is formed, and mercury chloride it is poorly ionizable, that is a poorly ionizable complex. Poorly ionizable means once it is formed it does not ionize to give back mercury ions and chloride ions. It will be in the complex state, that is mercury chloride. It is an irreversible reaction. Therefore, to remove chloride ions, we are adding what? Mercuric sulfate. But if you are provided with the wastewater which is absolutely free from chloride ions, you need not add mercuric sulfate. That's why while explaining the procedure part, I told you that 1 gram of mercuric sulfate you need not do, because in the laboratory we are providing you the wastewater sample which absolutely doesn't contain chloride ions. And moreover, mercuric sulfate, it contains mercury, that is heavy metal, toxic metal, and for each trial you are adding 1 gram of mercuric sulfate means we will be contributing this for this heavy metal to environmental pollution. So we will be taking responsibility to add these mercury compounds into the environment. Therefore, in the laboratory, while doing the experiment, you are not adding mercuric sulfate. But by procedure, you should be knowing what for this mercuric sulfate is required. Okay. Next, silver sulfate, that is Ag2SO4. It is added only after removing all the chloride ions. Silver sulfate is added only after removing all the chloride ions. Otherwise, all the silver ions would be precipitated as silver chloride. See, these chloride ions completely should be removed from the water sample by adding mercuric sulfate. Only after that you have to add silver sulfate. Suppose if you add silver sulfate first, before adding mercuric sulfate, all the chloride ions will react with the silver sulfate and silver chloride gets precipitated. So we will be losing silver ions in the solution. What for silver ions are needed? Silver is needed in order to catalyze the reaction, because it is a good catalyst for the oxidation of the straight chain organic compounds. So we are not supposed to lose silver ions. That is why all the silver sulfate is added only after the complete removal of chloride ions. So after taking care of all these steps, then the amount of unconsumed potassium dichromate, we have added 10 ml of potassium dichromate. That 10 ml is actually excess. Say this in the bracket I have given. Say out of 10 ml potassium dichromate added, what for you are adding potassium dichromate? Let's oxidize the waste present in the water sample. But 10 ml is extra we are adding, that is more we are adding. Say out of 10 ml, 6 ml is utilized. So out of the 10 ml potassium dichromate added, say 6 ml is utilized for the oxidation of the waste present. So 6 ml potassium dichromate is totally consumed for the oxidation of the waste. So how much is remaining now? The remaining quantity is only 4 ml. Now 4 ml excess is remaining in the solution, that is called unreacted potassium dichromate or unconsumed potassium dichromate. That 4 ml which is remaining is called unreacted, that has not been utilized for the oxidation of the waste. And this unreacted or unconsumed potassium dichromate is titrated with the ferrous ammonium sulfate. Potassium dichromate which is titrated with ferrous ammonium sulfate taken in the burette. So in the back titration, whatever amount of potassium dichromate not reacted with the waste is being titrated with the ferrous ammonium sulfate. So amount of unconsumed, it is underlined. Unconsumed means unreacted. Unreacted means the quantity of potassium dichromate not reacted with the waste. Okay, so unconsumed potassium dichromate is determined by titrating with standard solution of ferrous ammonium sulfate, that is FAS, using ferroin as an indicator. Ferroin, the chemical name is 1,10 phenanthrolene iron 2 sulfate. 1,10 phenanthrolene iron 2 sulfate. It is iron 2. In this you have ferrous ion, that is Fe2 plus. In the Fe2 plus state, it is red in color. Now you have found out in the back titration how much potassium dichromate is not reacted or how much potassium dichromate is unreacted in the solution, how much potassium dichromate is unconsumed by the sample. So that you will get in the back titration. So whatever three trial values you are reporting, all the three trial values you are reporting to the teacher, that will give you, that is amount of that will give you the volume of FAS consumed for unreacted potassium dichromate. Volume of FAS utilized for unreacted potassium dichromate. But we need how much potassium dichromate is consumed. We don't need how much potassium dichromate is unconsumed. Now amount of potassium dichromate that is consumed, again underline, that corresponds to the COD of the wastewater sample. For us, we want to calculate COD. We want to measure COD. COD means chemical oxygen demand. So how much potassium dichromate, how much chemical is consumed by the sample water, that is what we need. And how to find out what amount of potassium dichromate is consumed. Now moving on, let us see that part. Taking a break for the time being and getting back to the same later. Now indicator ferroin, you are adding what? Ferrous ion. Indicator ferroin contains a ferrous ion, that is Fe2+, which is reddish in brown in color. So ferrous ion is reddish brown in color, that is why you are adding the indicator drops which is red in color. Upon adding to the wastewater containing potassium dichromate, you are adding that wastewater to potassium containing wastewater, you are adding that indicator to the wastewater containing potassium dichromate. The unreacted potassium dichromate, now you have some unreacted potassium dichromate that oxidizes ferrous of the indicator to ferric. So in the indicator you have ferrous ion which is red in color, you are adding it to the wastewater which contains potassium dichromate, the unreacted. Okay, adding to wastewater containing potassium dichromate, the unreacted potassium dichromate present, because some amount will be utilized for the oxidation of the waste. That will oxidize ferrous of the indicator to ferric, so which is bluish green in color. So after adding the indicator, your solution won't be red. Even though you have added the reddish colored indicator, the solution won't be red, the solution becomes bluish green. That is all because ferrous of the indicator changes to ferric. Now during titration, when you are titrating it, FAS reacts with the unreacted potassium dichromate. As I told you, that is FAS is taken in the burette, it reacts with the unreacted potassium dichromate. So FAS is a reducing agent, potassium dichromate is an oxidizing agent. So ferrous ammonium sulfate reduces potassium dichromate to chromic sulfate. This being the reducing agent, it has to reduce potassium dichromate to a new compound, that is chromic sulfate, and that itself gets oxidized. So ferrous ammonium sulfate gets oxidized to ferric ammonium sulfate, potassium dichromate gets reduced to chromic sulfate. Chromic sulfate is greenish in color. Now at the end point, the indicator restores it to original color. The indicator restores its original color, that is due to the complete reduction of potassium dichromate to chromic sulfate. So potassium dichromate is completely reduced to chromic sulfate. Now at the end point there is no potassium dichromate. There is no potassium dichromate means the indicator has to restore its original color, because Fe3 plus gets reduced back to what? Fe2 plus state. In the Fe2 plus state, indicator gives a red color. When it goes to the Fe3 plus state in the presence of the oxidizing agent, then it becomes a bluish green in color. But at the end point, there is no potassium dichromate, no oxidizing agent. Therefore, Fe3 plus of the indicator comes back to the Fe2 plus state, restoring the original color of the indicator. And therefore, at the end point, you will get that is bluish green to reddish brown. Now moving on. Let the volume of FAS consumed for the unreacted potassium dichromate. Unreacted potassium dichromate volume be V1 ml. So you are doing the back titration, whatever you have reported, the three values, that is V1 ml, that is consumed for unreacted potassium dichromate. That is in the column somewhere I have written, and at that time I didn't explain to you. It is a volume of more salt solution required for a unreacted potassium dichromate. Unreacted means the dichromate which is not utilized for the oxidation of the waste. Whatever values you are reporting to the teacher, it is how much volume of FAS not consumed by the waste, not consumed by the waste. Now later we teachers are giving you some value, that is for blank titration. I told you, no, that is blank titer value you are not doing, this only teacher is doing, and blank titer value teacher is giving, that is some value teacher will give you. Now let us see what happens then. Now when the in the blank titration, the same procedure is being repeated by taking same volume of distilled water. Instead of wastewater, we are taking water, distilled water, and entire procedure is same. I mean, in the same way it is done. Let the volume of FAS consumed for the blank titration, that is V2 ml. For the blank titration, it is V2 ml. In the blank titration, since we have taken distilled water is absolutely free from waste. So if you add there 10 ml of dichromate, that 10 ml of dichromate remains 10 ml only, because it doesn't get consumed, as the distilled water doesn't contain any waste. Dichromate gets consumed only when the solution contains waste. For distilled water, dichromate doesn't get consumed, the entire 10 ml remains as such. Therefore, when you are titrating it with the FAS will react with the entire dichromate. FAS will react with entire dichromate in the blank titration, whereas FAS will react with only unreacted dichromate in the case of back titration. So I reiterate, in the back titration, FAS gets consumed for the unreacted dichromate. In the blank titration, FAS gets consumed for the entire amount of dichromate added. Therefore, how much amount of dichromate is consumed for the oxidation of the organic load? How much dichromate is consumed for the oxidation of the organic load? We can calculate in terms of FAS volume, that is subtracting V1 from V2. If you subtract back titer value from blank titer value, then you will get to know what amount of dichromate has been utilized by the waste, or how much dichromate has been consumed by the waste, and that corresponds to the chemical oxygen demand. And once you know that how much amount of chemical oxygen is consumed, then simply doing the calculations and arriving at the final answer, that is COD in terms of milligrams per liter. So just summarizing what you are doing, back titration, you are taking the solution in the burette is standard solution of more salt. Even in the blank titration it is same. Solution taken the conical flask 25 ml of wastewater, but in the blank titration, instead of 25 ml of wastewater, you are taking it is distilled water. That is the only difference between blank titration and back titration. In the blank titration, you are adding one, then rest of the chemicals it is one and the same. That is, you have to add 1 gram of mercuric sulfate, 10 ml of potassium dichromate solution. Then it is to be refluxed for about half an hour, and it is refluxed only if the waste quantity is more. If the organic load or waste or impurities is not very high in the solution, then the solution need not be refluxed. And in the regular lab, you are not refluxing the solution for about half an hour, because we are providing you the wastewater that doesn't contain high concentration of the waste, and therefore refluxing is not required in the laboratory. And indicator is 3 to 4 drops of ferroin indicator. It is end point bluish green to reddish brown. Actual color of the indicator, when you are adding it to the conical flask, it is reddish brown. But when you add it to the conical flask, you will not get to see the red color there, because it changes its color from red to bluish green. And at the end point, the reddish brown color gets restored. That is due to the beautiful chemistry involved during the reaction. Now blank titration is also performed, but this value is provided by the teacher. This experiment blank titration is done by the teacher or lab instructor, and that value will be provided to the students in the examination to do the calculations. So this is about chemical oxygen demand. So this experiment is a beautiful experiment. Lot of chemistry is involved. That is to know the theory behind the experiment. And in order to understand what is chemical oxygen demand, first you have to be knowing the definition and what for this experiment is done. The very purpose of doing the experiment is to know the extent of pollution in water, and in what way we can conclude that is pollution level. That is, if the COD value is high, means we say that pollution strength is high, or extent of pollution is high. And what is the unit in which COD is expressed? That is milligrams per liter. What are the various reagents used in the experiment, and how they are adding, and in what order they are to be added? What is the role of each and every chemical that is being added? You have to be knowing. That is the theory part. Role of mercuric sulfate, role of silver sulfate, role of acidified potassium dichromate, etc., etc. And formulae and reactions involved also you have to practice. What is unconsumed potassium dichromate? What is consumed potassium dichromate? Consumed potassium dichromate corresponds to the COD. Unconsumed potassium dichromate we are determining that is in back titration. And entire potassium dichromate, how much Fa is consumed, how much Fa is used up for the entire potassium dichromate, that we are finding out in a blank titration. And whatever it is provided in the bracket, that is for your understanding. And FAS formula also you are supposed to be knowing. FAS formula that is given in the procedure part, there is a double salt, and ferroin indicator chemical name also should be knowing. That is 1,10 phenanthroline iron 2 sulfate. And the mechanism of the indicator, how exactly indicator restores its original color. What is the metal ion present in the indicator? What happens to that metal ion when it is added to the wastewater? And ferrous ammonium sulfate reacts with what in the conical flask? And what is the nature of ferrous ammonium sulfate? That is a reducing agent. Potassium dichromate is an oxidizing agent. Basically it is a redox reaction taking place. Potassium dichromate gets reduced to which compound, and ferrous ammonium sulfate gets oxidized to which compound? Everything you should be knowing. I think whatever I could I did here, to the best of my ability I explained this experiment to you. That is both theory, theory, procedure, as well as calculations. I feel that still you might get some doubts here. That is because a lot of chemistry is involved. For all your queries, means whatever questions crop up your mind, please write down, and anytime you can call your teacher and you can get your doubts clarified. But very important to watch this video. This experiment is there not only in the laboratory. This theory part you should be knowing, because some theory you are also studying, that is in the module 4 water chemistry. So if you study this one entirely here, then again you need not study separately for the theory. The same thing you can write there. Thank you very much.